This is the Can Crushers Wrestling Podcast.
The following contest is scheduled for one fall.
Let's go nuts! It's Jimmy Nuts! Drive out with a car!
With your hosts, Mark Martinez.
Remember, just because you're trash doesn't mean you can't do great things.
And the English Professor.
It's called a garbage can, not a garbage cannot.
Hey, this is former WWE superstar Duke, the Dumpster Drosy, and you are listening to the Can Crushers Podcast.
And welcome back to another edition of Can Crushers Spotlight. I am your host, Mark Martinez, and I'm super excited to have the Imagine Heavyweight Champion of the World, Spencer Slade, sit down and talk to me for a while. Guys, this was a fun interview. This was motivating. There's so much about this man that just wants to make me go run a 10K. Well, maybe a 5K. Yeah, I would die on a 10K, so a 5K I can do. No, this guy's story is amazing. I'm not going to do... If you don't know about Spencer Slade, I'm going to wait until we get into the interview till you find out what his story is. Man, this guy is unbelievable. He is the Imagine Heavyweight Champion. Sad to say that this Saturday's Imagine has been canceled with all the coronavirus precautionaries going on around our area. Guys, this is a time just to sit back, relax, and, watch some wrestling on TV. Just cool down. I know the talent is struggling, so if you see that they're selling some shirts, head over to Pro Wrestling Tees, help out your indie talent. This is the way they make a buck. You'll hear this. You'll really hear this in Spencer's interview about it's all or nothing right now. It really is. So without any more hesitation, let me tell you about Collar and Elbow. The new gear is up. I told you there was new gear, and it is amazing. I posted them up on the Facebook page, so go over and check it out. See all the new designs. I can't wait to get maybe one or two of mine in the mail here in the near future. But when you go to check out, use Can Crushers, all one word, capital C in Can, capital C in Crushers, and you'll get 10% off your order. They're sweet, but they're not as sweet as this interview right after Al Snow with the Imagine Heavyweight Champion, Spencer Slade.
Wrestling. A love and a passion we all share. I've started a wrestling brand. The wrestling brand. A brand founded on the aspects of wrestling. Two entities working together to create a product that connect emotionally for people everywhere. Collar and Elbow is the brand. Passion and love for wrestling is the drive. I am Al Snow, and this is Collar and Elbow, the wrestling brand.
And welcome back to Can Crushers, guys. You heard in the intro how excited I am to hear about this man's story. Fear the gear. He is the Imagine Wrestling Heavyweight Champion within a year of graduating from training. This guy is amazing, and he's going to take over indie wrestling and any other wrestling once we get rid of this damn coronavirus. Welcome to Can Crushers, Spencer Slade.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you having me on.
Spencer, we have to talk about the hot issue right now. I know we didn't talk about it, pre-show, but the coronavirus is, besides the sickness, it's really putting a stranglehold on professional wrestling right now, especially in our area, isn't it?
Oh my God, yeah. This coronavirus is. I thought, I would love to put the coronavirus in an ankle lock and give it the Olympic slam, because this thing is just killing me right now, and I'm sure it's killing every other wrestler, referee, manager, promoter, anybody else associated with wrestling. I'm sure they're feeling the same way.
Yeah, a couple of the guys that aren't here tonight, but a couple of the guys and I were talking that, you have the WWE, you have AEW who are now going to run, shows without audiences. Indies can't do that. That's going to hurt. Let's just jump on with the two that we associate you with really well, Imagine or IWC. If they have to cancel, that's money out of all you guys' pockets. And down the line, there could be some ramifications of maybe closing if this continues to run, right?
Yeah, I know. This is because Cato had, like I said, had called me earlier and told me about how he had to cancel his Imagine show, and it just happens to be the biggest show in Imagine history. It's our 10th year anniversary. We had a 1 year anniversary, shall I say. We had the biggest show stacked, man. It was myself versus Big Bill Collier in the main event. It was Amandine versus Brian Pillman. It was Ray Lynn versus Queen Anna Meter. I mean, we had a really, really stacked card. And it just sucks because it's in Altoona, and as far as I'm concerned, I don't think Altoona has any cases of the coronavirus, which makes it even worse because, quite frankly, that's a pretty darn safe area to run a show. But the athletic commission came in and said no, and it just really, really ruins everybody because when you're so passionate about wrestling, you're not going to let anything stop you from doing what you love.
Yeah, as of recording, because we're recording early as we always do. There's nothing in Altoona. There's nothing in DuBois, Ridgeway. Our surrounding areas. So it's a big hit for Imagine. And I'm not jumping on your match, but don't forget we also had Shane Douglas against David Lawless in a street fight from hell.
Yeah, that was actually those two had a really awesome match the show before, and I was really looking forward to seeing what was going to happen up at Altoona on that. So I'm just hoping that Cato can get this show rescheduled sometime down the line, because if anybody out there is listening, this is definitely a show that you don't want to miss.
Yeah, let's stay with that actually right before we'll jump around. As I said, we will. You were going to face big-time Bill Collier, and probably your toughest opponent in your career thus far, and it was going to be two behemoths going at it in the ring. I mean, you guys are cut out of granite, for love's sake.
Yeah, that was, to me, I was so looking forward to the big-time Bill Collier match, because to me, I look at that as that's a match right there to put, like a classic on, to put like a 20 or 25 minute thriller. I was really looking forward to that for being my first big match, because I've actually so far been lucky enough to wrestle some great opponents. I've wrestled Dylan Bostic, I've wrestled John McChesney, I've wrestled Chris LaRusso, I've wrestled Beastman, I've wrestled the Man Down Elijah Dean. So, only being out about 8 or 9 months in my wrestling career, I've been very fortunate enough to wrestle some darn good opponents. But, man, big-time Bill Collier, it doesn't get any bigger than that.
No, not at all. You brought up Chris LaRusso. That's who you took the title from. He's the hometown boy in Altoona, loved by all. And, let's stay with wrestling terms. You're a face going in there as well. You don't see face versus face that much, but after the match, after you beat him down, he gave you a hug. He kind of like passed the torch of Altoona on to you, didn't he?
Absolutely, yeah. That was. I remember Chris telling me, you deserve this. This was an awesome match, and I had and going into that match, that was at that point, that was in November. That was like my first biggest match. Obviously, my first match for a title. And I wanted to prove to myself that I could hang with Chris. And most importantly, I wanted to prove to Chris that all the time that he dedicated to me to help train me was going to pay off. And I wanted him to know that he trained a superstar, and that he's training somebody that's going to be a good wrestler, and somebody that bought into his system and listened to Chris. Because I don't know if you guys know, that's who I was trained by. Chris is the one that trained me from start to scratch. So all the success that I have in wrestling, I always owe it to Chris, because he's the one that took his time out to train me the right way. And there's one thing I always tell Chris, you know, of all the coaches that I've ever had in sports, Chris is the only coach in my life that has an insane patience for people, man. There would be times in practice where somebody wouldn't get something, but Chris would just keep going rep after rep to make sure somebody makes sure that somebody got that move or that technique down. That's one thing that I always commend Chris. I'm very, very fortunate that I got to train with Chris, because I wouldn't be in the position that I am right now had I not got trained by him. So that's why that win meant so much more, because I was very, very happy that I got to, you know, beat my own trainer. It doesn't get any much better than that, beating your own trainer for the title.
Yeah, that was one of the things we were going to bring up, and I'm glad you touched on it, because we've had LaRusso on the show. He's a friend of the show. So, in essence, though, I'm going to twist this and be the shit stirrer on here. You've also defeated Cato then, too, because Cato trained Chris, right?
Correct, yeah, correct. Cato trained Chris, and Chris trained me, and and Cato's the other guy that I also dedicated all my success to as well, because, you know, he's the first promoter to give me the chance to be their champion. He's the first person to say, all right, kid, we're going to roll with you. You're going to be the face of our company, the John Cena. So here you go. It's sink or swim. So, you know, I always make sure that I never let Cato down, because, you know, I understand, you know, Imagine Wrestling is not as big as the WWE or AEW, but I take it just as it's being the face of the company, you know. Making sure you represent the company the right way, always going out of your way to make sure the fans enjoy the show. So I got to give a lot of thanks to Cato, because he's definitely given me an opportunity that most guys I don't think get when they're 5 or 6 months into their careers.
You brought up something right there that I have to touch on. You said Imagine might not be as big as WWE or AEW or any of those. You're correct, but let's round 200, 300, 400 people that they jam into the Juniata Civic Association building. Each one of those fans at Imagine is touched at some point during the night. You can't say that at the PPG Arena, that everybody has that connection with WWE on said night.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's the great thing about professional wrestling is there's so many options out there. You know, the people that come to the Imagine shows, they could be WWE fans, they could be AEW fans. Most importantly, they're all fans of professional wrestling, which is exactly what it's all about. Because I feel like we're part of one big giant community, a pro wrestling community. We all come from different walks of life, different skin color, different ethnicities, different sexual orientations, whatever you want to call it. But we all love one thing, and that's professional wrestling. And, you know, whether somebody likes me or not, I absolutely love when they're in watching the show, because we always feed off the fans' energy.
So let's do a rewind, as we all like to do, because you have a hell of a story to tell as well. We've been dabbling around for close to about 10 minutes now, and I haven't brought up the big part, and I'm still not going to yet. So let's go way back to Spencer when he's a little guy. Who introduced you to the wrestling? Mom, Dad, Grandpa, an uncle? Who said, you have to watch this?
Absolutely. So as I like to say, I became professional wrestling adopted me, as I like to say, when I was about 8, 9 years old. So I was born in 94. So I started watching wrestling about 2002, 2003. My grandfather got me into it. I think I was 8 or 9 years old at the time. And I distinctly remember the first match that I ever watched as a kid was Kurt Angle versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 19. And I think it was Seattle. 2003, and I remember just sitting there and watching that, and just watching Kurt Angle, who was built like a professional athlete, Olympic gold medalist wrestler, and I saw Brock Lesnar, who was just a freak of nature, and I saw these two guys going at it, slamming each other, and I remember looking at that and saying, "Wow, that's a 9-year-old kid. That's exactly what I want to do with my life," because there was something about it. It just Ever since then, I was glued to wrestling. From 2003 I have never missed a Raw, SmackDown, or pay-per-view since. I have been hooked to professional wrestling ever since. I think it was just what was going on in that ring just hooked me. That's exactly what Spencer needs to be doing. So that's how I got into wrestling at that moment.
So I'm actually correct on my guess because I always try to throw guesses out there who I would compare you to, and you've named both of them already. Brock Lesnar because you're big, you're chiseled, and Kurt Angle because you have, of course it's easy, you have the headgear, but the headgear is also for something else we'll get down the line for. But you also have that, amateur look. So by far, your two favorites by all time?
Yeah, absolutely. Kurt Angle, that's fine. Kurt Angle and Randy Orton are my two all-time favorite wrestlers. I can't, everybody likes to say, oh, well, I love, Hogan, Ultimate Warrior. A lot of people like to jump around and say they like Cena, Triple H, or they liked everybody. But Kurt Angle and Randy Orton were my top two guys. And I always knew that's exactly who I wanted to be like when I grew up. I wanted to have that, whether I was playing football, whatever sport I was playing, I always wanted to make sure that I had that. Brought in the same competitiveness that Kurt Angle brought to the ring. Same thing with Randy Orton. I just, those two guys, man, and it's funny is because when I was a 10-year-old kid, and I remember telling my parents, one day I'm gonna be a wrestler. I'm gonna wrestle like Kurt Angle, and I'm gonna kind of look like Randy Orton. And I think, sometimes when you say stuff, you just might get it. And who knows? 15 years later, people always tell me, "Oh, you look like Randy Orton," and people tell me you wrestle like Kurt Angle. So, I think I was a good fortune teller at 10 years old.
You sure were. Did you do a lot of study with both of those guys, like early career Randy? Of course you did. Yeah, that's a stupid question, right?
I mean, I love it because back then, as a kid, it was, and I'll talk about when I first started training wrestling. I'll elaborate more on that. But as a kid, when I started watching wrestling, I immediately was trying to figure out, okay, if I watch Raw, SmackDown, and pay-per-views, there's got to be something else out there. And I know that TNA was just starting around. I want to say I started watching TNA around 2004 and 2005. I think that was when they were on Spike or something. I can't remember.
I believe so.
I
yeah.
would go on YouTube. Yep, I would go on YouTube and I would just Google search Kurt Angle matches, Randy, and then I started liking Randy Orton more towards like 2005, 2006, kind of later on. So it's about 2003. Randy Orton wasn't in yet, but I would just Google search Kurt Angle matches, and I was watching any match that I could on YouTube because that was obviously before the network. But I was studying watching wrestling since I was 9 years old religiously, as if I was going to wrestling school. It's just I was hooked. Most kids my age, they love to play video games or go out and play in the playground or whatever, man. But I was different. All I liked to do was play sports and watch wrestling. That was it.
So you bring up playing sports. We know that you're a former college athlete as well. Let's talk about some of that. Tell everybody about what you did in college.
Absolutely, yeah. So, I had played. So I like. This is where sometimes people some people have given me the nickname. They say, "Oh, you know what? You kind of like Mr. Perfect because you played so many damn sports." But I'd like to put money on that of all the professional wrestlers out there, I would like to put money on that. I think I've played the most sports out of most of those wrestlers. I've played every single sport. I've done football, basketball, baseball, track and field, swimming, tennis, golf. But you would never guess the one sport that people think that I have obviously played that I never have.
You didn't wrestle.
Correct. That's one thing. I wrestled just like Kurt Angle. I wore the headgear, but I never, ever did amateur wrestling. And I like to tell people that because when I had actually, when I was a kid, I had actually thought about going to, my parents had wanted me to try, wrestling. But I remember going to my first ever practice in amateur wrestling. And I remember walking in the doors and looking around, and I was like, where's the ring at? I don't see no ring. There's no ring. And I didn't realize that amateur wrestling and pro wrestling were two different things. And as a 9-10-year-old kid, and I actually ended up not doing amateur wrestling because I had always been a pro wrestling fan. And now looking back at it now, I kind of wish I would have done amateur wrestling because I think it kind of could have helped me in wrestling. But I had kind of just done some recreational wrestling around with a couple other wrestlers. But yeah, that's one sport I never did. But I'm kind of glad that I did because I kind of look a little bit like I am an amateur wrestler in the ring because I think I just kind of pick it up pretty natural. But that's the one sport that I didn't play. So I had played sports throughout high school. Sports were my my escape. It's really the only thing I enjoyed because it gave me that competitiveness, which I thrive on. Always having a chip on your shoulder to be the absolute best. So I had a scholarship out of high school to go play college ball. I went to Duquesne first, which is in downtown Pittsburgh, and then from there they fired the whole coaching staff, and I went and played football down south at Shaw University in Raleigh, North Carolina. I played 3 years down there, was a 3-year starter, All-American, led the team in sacks. And then I came up and played my last year of eligibility up at Cal U, right in California, PA, where I got my bachelor's and master's degree. And then from there, I had a couple private tryouts with the Canadian Football League team, Saskatchewan Rough Riders, the Ottawa Red Blacks, the Edmonton Eskimos. And then I actually went out to the Canadian Football League Combine out in Carlsbad, California. It's like the CFL. It's CFL's version of the NFL Combine. I went out there. That was March of 2018. I did really, really well. I thought I was going to get signed. I thought I was going to get a contract offer, but nothing came above. So immediately, when I didn't hear anything, so that was in March, and then in May is when I started training to be a wrestler. So it wasn't too long after that I started doing what I absolutely love. So that's kind of what my thing of sports right there.
That's roughly the same time that the XFL was saying that they were going to come back into fruition and everything. Before we get into your training, did you ever give a thought of like, damn, maybe if I can get into this XFL, I can get my way back into the NFL, or were you completely done with football?
No, absolutely not, because, like I said, ever since I was a kid, I've always wanted to be a wrestler, and it just happened that I had done really, really well in high school that I had the opportunity to play in college, because if I wouldn't have got a scholarship to play college ball, I would have just trained to be a wrestler, because that's, like I said, that's all I wanted to do. Actually, here's a funny story. So when I remember telling my parents when I was like 16, I want to go to wrestling school. I don't want to go to college. I don't want to do this. That's pretty much the typical wrestler. But, my parents said, oh, no, you got to go to college. You got to do this. So my wrestling career was put on hold. And then my senior year of high school was WrestleMania 29 in New York, New Jersey, which I went with my best friend from high school. And I had the time of my life. It was my graduation gift my parents gave to me. We went out, did everything, Raw, SmackDown, Hall of Fame, Access.
Nice.
And I remember coming back home from WrestleMania, and I had already had my scholarship getting ready to go to college. And I had told my parents, I said, I don't think I want to go to college. I think I want to give up this full ride scholarship to be a wrestler, because, that's just all I've wanted to do. My parents would tell me, you'd be an idiot to do that. And looking back at it now, I'm glad that I didn't, because to be honest with you, if I would have gone and played, if I would have started training to be a wrestler when I graduated high school, I still would have had that urge to want to play football. So I'm kind of glad that I went to college, played football, got my degrees, and then got into wrestling when I know that football's done, because there was quite a few times, no matter how successful I was in football, I always wanted to be a wrestler. I can remember I would have a great game, like 2 or 3 sacks, and I would be at home, maybe on the network on that Sunday, or just watching match, and tell myself, man, you know what? I don't think I really want to play football anymore. I think I just want to be a wrestler, because I loved wrestling so much. It's the only thing I want to do with my life. So I told myself, you know what? I'm chasing a football dream right now. I'm just going to finish this out, see how far I can make it in football. And if football doesn't work, that I'm going to chase my first dream of professional wrestling. So that's how I got to where I'm at today.
And in the whole scheme of things, you got your master's degree as well, because we know in wrestling anything can happen, and then you have like your fallback of fallbacks if you need it, right?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So I got my bachelor's degree and my master's degree, and I can tell you that, you know, the last thing I want to have to do is now that, you know, wrestling's picking up, you know, is obviously the whole goal is to get signed, you know, to get a contract, because I'm the kind of person that I don't want to have to work a real job any longer than I have to do, because wrestling is the only thing I want to do with my life. You know, that's the only thing in my life that I want to do. You know, I'm glad that I got my degrees and stuff like that, but, you know, obviously the goal is to get signed. That's the goal.
Guys, and now here's the part of the podcast that it gets real. We haven't brought this up. Spencer and I have been dancing around it, sort of, but I want to say this, and Spencer, you're deaf, right?
Absolutely, yes, sir. Yep, that's how I was. So I was born that way when I was a kid. Yep.
How hard, you know, through life? I mean, I can't say, well, I know, but how has the transition been from, again, you just told the football stories, but from childhood to football to now into wrestling, because we know, you know, it's open to the public now how wrestling works. How hard is that in a match?
Oh my God! So I'm going to take you back from the kid all the way to now, because I like to go in a timeline. So, yeah, I was born that way. I've always had hearing. I've always had to wear 2 hearing aids in my ears ever since I was a kid. It was just how I was born. There's nothing that I can do to get my hearing back. I pretty much have to wear hearing aids for the rest of my life. You know, I was always picked on as a kid, always looked at different. I was always, you know, bullied as a young kid, because, you know, you got to realize, you know, I'm a big guy now, but when I was growing up, I was a really, really scrawny kid, you know, and of course I had hearing aids. And that's kind of where I like to talk about how I'm so glad that I discovered wrestling, because I like to credit wrestling to pretty much saving my life, because I'm not going to lie, I had some, you know, depression. I had some suicidal thoughts here and there because I couldn't deal with my the bullying and stuff like that. But, you know, wrestling was my escape. It was the only thing that I could go to feel better. I can remember coming home when I was 10, 11, 12. I would have a bad day, you know, just was getting picked on maybe here or there. But when I would turn on Monday Night Raw, or I would put on Friday Night SmackDown at the time, man, those bad times would just wash away. It just, when I watched wrestling, it just put a smile on my face. So here's where my story gets even more real. So, like I said, I credit wrestling to saving my life, but wrestling also gave me the mindset to push myself to be the best person, player, and student, because every time when I watch Kurt Angle, Randy Orton, and Triple H, John Cena, all those guys, you know, they all inspired me to, you know, get in the weight room, work out. They inspired me to push myself. They inspired me to prove people wrong. And that's where sports came into play. That's why I played so many sports, because sports was my outlet. That's where I could take all of my frustrations out on sports. And I would do it by being so competitive. I was that guy in gym class, or that guy in sports that would go super duper hard, because people wouldn't take me seriously in school. So I wanted to make sure that people took me seriously, whether it was on a football field, on the court, or in the baseball field. And you know, I like to talk about, I don't know if you remember this, but this was around 2000, and I know this is getting really in depth here, but this was around like 2008, 2009, when Randy Orton had that insane heel turn where he kicked Mr. McMahon in the skull and all that.
Yes.
Well, I was so I would have been about 13, I want to say 14 around that time, and that was probably kind of the peak of the you know, whole bullying stuff. And I remember when Randy Orton was a heel, you know, that really, really resonated with me, because, you know, Randy Orton had that mindset, you know, don't mess with me. And I kind of had that too. I idolized Randy Orton so much to the point where I I would walk down the hallways in middle school the same way he would walk down the ramp. I would envision Randy Orton's facials, how he would walk, how he would talk, because he was a badass. And I remember just looking at Randy Orton and saying, that's who I want to be. I want to be a badass like him. You know, what do I got to do to get people to respect me? Okay, well, I got to get in the gym. I got to be more self-confident. I got to develop self-esteem, stuff like that. So, and then once I got in the weight room and I started working out and started excelling in sports, then that's kind of when the bullying stopped, and then that's kind of when people started, you know, kissing my ass because, and I mean, I don't know if I can say that word, but that's when they started doing it, because I was getting successful at sports. The more successful you get, the more that people want to be your buddies, the more that people want to cater to you. But I'm not like that, because I'm the kind of person that I'll never forget how I was treated as a kid. You know, I wake up every single day in my life with a chip on my shoulder to be the absolute best. I don't say it to be cocky. I say it because I live it. It's something that I've done since I was 10, 11, 12 years old. And that's pretty much how I live my life. You know, I always set higher expectations, and that's exactly why I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to inspire young kids in wrestling, because I want to be able to do the same thing that Kurt Angle did to me, the same thing that Randy Orton did to me, the same thing that John Cena did to me. And that was inspired me to push myself to be the best. And that's where that leads me to wrestling right now.
Yeah, I'll let you say some more, but the whole reason why Spencer came out a month ago, so to speak, at Imagine Volume 9 and did a promo about pretty much everything you said, just in the shortened version, and
Yep.
And you brought up suicide and everything, and there was a spark in the room that night. Then, as soon as you brought up and said, "Hey, I wasn't this big rip guy back in the day," you saw little kids, you saw older people. Again, I've told you off the air that you got to me saying, holy shit, I really need to look into what he's talking about. And, you know, and I instantly reached out to you. I'm like, Spencer, we need to have you on the show. You need to tell your story because, you know, let's pretend we're going to throw the wrestling out. What you did for yourself saved your life, right?
Absolutely. And like I said, you know, it just wrestling, professional wrestling is that thing that I like to say that gave me a reason to chase greatness. It gave me a reason to wake up every single day and live life. Because I remember sitting down, always watching I would watch wrestling. I would always look at like the WWE Championship, and I would tell myself, you know what? You got to work your tail off one day to earn that, to be a WWE champion. You know, it's going to be a long road to get there, but I'm telling you, if you don't quit one day, it's going to be so much rewarding when you be the WWE champion one day, and then you can look back and say, oh, you know what? I remember when I was a 12-year-old kid. I remember when I was going through that bad time. I'm so glad that 12-year-old kid didn't give up, because he's standing in front of you here, the WWE champion. That's my ultimate goal. That's why wrestling resonates with me. And I'm a big believer in motivational speeches. You know, I've been, ever since I've gotten into wrestling, I kind of see how other wrestlers are. It seems that, you know, everybody wants to be the bad heel. Everybody wants to be the cool face. Everybody wants to try to be cool. Well, there's not many indie guys out there that try to be just the genuine good dude, like the genuine John Cena. And that's kind of what I pride myself in, because I'm not trying to be a good guy. I'm not trying to be a bad guy. I'm just being myself. And I'm not a guy that's going to go out of his way to try to make sure that whatever young kid or whatever person's at that show, if they're going through a tough time, that they know that I've gone through the same thing. And if I can stand in front of them, the Imagine Wrestling champion, then they should be able to do anything they want with their life. That's how I look at it. Because you have to, especially in wrestling. You know, I understand that, you know, obviously WWE has the biggest platform, and that's the ultimate goal. But I'm going to start I'm going to start platform very, very small with Imagine Wrestling and just build it. You got to start somewhere. And if I can inspire a couple people in Altoona, Pennsylvania to not quit on their dreams, then to me that's better than doing nothing.
A journey starts with one step, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that's where and I get so much satisfaction out of when people come up to the merchandise table and tell me, oh, because of you, my son's focused now. Or because of you, I lost X number of pounds of weight. Oh, because of you, my son's grades were good. Or my son, he's finally building self-confidence. I remember a mother coming up to me and telling me that their young son thought that he was a loser because I guess he lost a little wrestling tournament, and I gave him a little pep talk, which I love. I love giving pep talks. That's just something I've done in football. I remember telling that kid, at the other side of pain and failure is success, because you always learn through failure and pain. And I told him, you got to continue pushing on yourself. And I remember his mother telling me a couple of weeks ago that after that speech, he went out and won his little amateur wrestling tournament. So that's where I take extreme satisfaction out of. To me, that's more important than being a champion, when you can really, really impact somebody's life. And that's what I'm in wrestling for.
That's the best advice. We always ask for advice at the end of the show, but you can't top what you just said. You turned in. Let me throw a little bit of heat at you for a minute. You turned into Roman Reigns for a minute. You're not a good guy. You're not a bad guy. You're just the guy. You're right on. I mean, and you can take that advice that you just said, and again, take wrestling out of it. Put it as, a nurse or a doctor or a dentist or, a garbage man that we always go to. If you do your best that day, your best becomes better the next day, right?
Absolutely. And that's exactly why, because, I've obviously gone to a lot of WWE shows, and I always see how people always, give Reigns or Cena crap for being too nice of a guy. But you know what? Every single one of those middle-aged dudes that are booing Reigns, they secretly respect Roman and John. They secretly wish they could do what Reigns and John Cena does. There's a reason why Roman Reigns is the face of the company. There's a reason why John Cena is the face of the company, is because they always do good things. And good things happen to good people, and that's exactly why there's two guys that are in their position, and that's my long-term goal, is to be in their position. So why not wait until you get signed to start and do that, when you can start and do it when you first get into wrestling?
Right on.
That's how I look at it.
Right on. You're actually talking to, I hate Roman Reigns and I hate John Cena, and you know why, Spencer? Because I'm jealous. That's exactly why.
Yeah, and you know what? It's okay to be jealous. It's good to be jealous when that drives you to be better. It's bad to be jealous when you hate on somebody. Right. I always tell people that are jealous of other people's successes. I'm like, well, the only reason why they're more successful than you is because they've been doing that more consistently for longer than you have. Don't be jealous. It's good that that you're hungry and want to be successful, but don't be jealous, because you can't compare yourself to anybody else. You got to be yourself. You got to be the first version of you. Everybody has a different path to the same destination.
I'm just going to let you speak and be my motivational speaker, because you're right. I'm 43, right? It's wrestling in my path. If I would have did it maybe 30 years ago. But right now it is... It's opening up to you guys. I want to be the best form for, talent to come on to tell their story, to, follow Spencer. So in a couple years, I can call you and say, hey, Spence, remember you did the podcast 5 or 6 times? Can you throw some WrestleMania tickets our way? Or, not to use you, but to build up a relationship.
Absolutely. And, that's one thing about me is I'm huge on loyalty. I never, ever forget the people that supported me from day one. And I sure as heck never forget the people that knew what I was up to since day one, but have never supported me since then. So whenever I'm off to bigger and better things, those people that never supported from you, that all of a sudden want to be your friend now, no, man. If you didn't support me from day one, then I don't want your support. I want the support from the people that that are good, genuine people that are willing to go out and do whatever it takes to accomplish their goal. You know, same thing with you. Everybody that I've met in wrestling, anybody that's supportive, I will always make sure I go out of my way to support them. Because at the end of the day in wrestling, you got to be, you can't, and that's one thing, you can't have an ego in wrestling. I mean, you can have an ego in your head, but you can't have that egotistical attitude because, you know, wrestling's obviously built on respect. And that's why I've been fortunate to be the Imagine Wrestling champion so early on, because not so necessarily because of all the in-ring stuff, is because, you know, I was able to develop a connection with the fans. And that's kind of where that leads me to, like, my catchphrase, Fear the Gear, which is, you know, what I came up with. Because I don't know if you know, but when I first started training to be a wrestler, I didn't wear headgear. I just wore my hearing aids in my ears. But every time that I would take a back bump, my hearing aids would come out of my ears because of the impact from the mat. And I knew that was going to be a distraction or problems early on. So I remember my trainer, Chris, telling me, "Oh, hey, why don't you go out and get some wrestler's headgear and put on?" And, you know, at first I was like, you know, are you sure? You know, is that not going to look too funky, or is that going to not look, you know, this or that? But I think it ended up being the greatest thing in the world because, you know, it helps me stand out. It protects what I hold so close to my heart, which are my hearing aids, because there's another thing too. Every time I put my hearing aids in the morning, I always get flashbacks of when I was a kid. And every time I put those hearing aids in, I always remind myself, all right, Spencer, you made it this far. Let's keep pushing. So when I put that headgear on, man, it's like my Superman cape. When I step in the ring, you can't stop me. That's kind of what the headgear means to me. So when I first debuted, I was thinking, okay, you know, I kind of need a catchphrase. I need something to, you know, resonate with the fans. And I came up with Fear the Gear. And I kind of liken Fear the Gear to kind of being another quote. Like when I say Fear the Gear, I like it to be, you're willing to do whatever it takes to push yourself. You want your opponent to fear your pride because you're so passionate about being the best version of yourself. You're so passionate about accomplishing your goals that you're not going to let anybody else or anything else stop you from getting it. So that's kind of where Fear the Gear came from.
That's awesome. I didn't know about the backdrops because, you know, we don't dive into your training that much because that's your time. That really is. And then the moniker Fear the Gear meaning so much more than just I thought it was just the headgear. So I love that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and absolutely. And the reason why I'm so over it, Imagine, if any of your listeners come to Imagine show, I'm like Hulk Hogan up there, is because
you really are.
I developed a connection with those with the fans up there, and that's one big thing that young wrestlers need to know. If you want to be a baby face, you have to find a way to get over with the fans. And what I did was, I remember when I was watching Rey Mysterio come out. Do you remember when Rey Mysterio would come out with his he would wear he would wear a mask over his mask, and he would give it to a little kid. Do you remember that?
Yep, I do.
So I said, oh, you know what? What if I came out with an extra set of headgear and I put it on a little kid? Because I don't think anybody in the history of wrestling comes out and does that.
Well, Bret Hart used to do the sunglasses.
Yep, and I started doing that, and that's really how I got over. So every time that I come out during Imagine, I always give a headgear to a little kid, and that's kind of what I like to kind of make myself different. And that's something that I look forward to doing every time that I'm up there.
Can a little kid be a 43-year-old fat bald man one night? Meaning me? No. No, I'm kidding. I want you to give it to the kids. I would turn around and give it to a kid anyway. I love what you're doing with that because that brings it back to me, you know, in front rows or whatever, hoping that Bret Hart would find me or, you know, Ray would find me. Yeah, so no, the kids deserve it, not a 43-year-old balding garbage man.
and just remember yourself as a kid. If a wrestler would give you something, man, that would make you want to love him so much more. And that right there, you never know, like I said, could make that kid's day. You don't know what he's going through. Maybe maybe one of his family members died. Maybe he was getting picked on. You don't know, but because you gave him that headgear, now that made his day. Now you develop an instant connection with the fans. So that's what I take pride in.
That's awesome. Hey, let's talk about some of your training a little bit. We brought up.
Oh, absolutely.
LaRusso being, your number one, and you trained at the IWC. We'll get into IWC here in a minute, but you trained at IWC school. Was there ever a point? I know you're a football star, and sports out the wazoo. Wrestling training is a little bit different. Was there ever a day saying, man, I don't know?
I would say when I want to be humble and say yes, but I also want to be confident and say no. I'd like to pride myself in saying that I picked up wrestling pretty darn quick. Because, like I said, I've watched it my whole life. And to be quite honest with you, pro wrestling is pretty much the most natural thing I've done. I remember when I first stepped foot in the ring, and I just got chills. I remember stepping in that ring and telling myself, man, this is exactly where I needed to be. I mean, the first couple weeks of wrestling were a little difficult just with the rolls because I never really rolled before, But when we started actually wrestling and learning stuff like that, man, I picked that stuff up on the fly. That was pretty darn natural to me because, and this is where I'm going to talk about my training here. I want everybody to hear this real quick, but, if your dream, especially if there's any aspiring wrestler out there that's listening, if your dream is to get signed, if your dream is to go to the WWE, go to AEW, whatever, you have to dedicate your life to wrestling. And that's exactly what I do. I don't have a social life. I don't have any friends. I don't have a girlfriend. I don't have a wife or kids. All I have is wrestling. I'm putting all of my eggs in one shell. I have 100% focus on wrestling. All I do is go to my job, work out, or go to the ring. That's it. I dedicate everything to wrestling. I'm either in the gym working out, I'm either in the ring trying to get better, or most importantly, I'm on the WWE Network watching matches. I'm always studying tape because I want to get to the Performance Center. And every single day, ask myself, okay, what are they doing at the Performance Center right now that I can do? Oh, okay, well, they're working out. Okay, I'll work out. Oh, they're probably watching film. Okay, I'm watching the film. Oh, they're probably in the ring training. Okay, well, I'm going to go in the ring and train. That's where I dedicate my life to, wrestling. And I think that's kind of why I've gotten pretty darn successful in wrestling because I don't know if you know, but I was supposed to go down to the Performance Center in December to try out for NXT.
Wow, I did not.
But then I was supposed to go down with the main event who went down, but then I got an email, I want to say 2 weeks before, saying that they're going to have me come down in March instead because they're doing a trial in December and a trial in March. So I trained my tail off for December, man. I was training twice a day, and then I was obviously a little disappointed when I was told March, but I looked at it as a little bit more time. So I did the same thing, 2 days, dedicated the next couple months to wrestling, training really, really hard. I was in the best shape of my life. And then I get an email about a month ago now saying, all right, Spencer, well, we're not going to have you come down in March now. We're going to have you come down in September for sure. You're going to be trying out for us in September. So, of course, then this is the second time I'm so bummed out because now I just told the trial keeps getting moved back. But I know now for sure that I'll be going down to the Performance Center in September to try out. So that gives me a couple more months to get better and, most importantly, hold my crap and go down to the Performance Center to in the best shape of my life. Because, I tell people all the time, I'm going down that trial in September to get signed, because I don't want to be after any longer than I have to. That's not me being cocky. That's just me being confident, And if you want to get what you want in life, you have to be confident. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Just doing these IWC and Imagine because that way I can get myself ready for that tryout in September.
Twofold on being pushed to September. One, March is a little bit crazy right now with the coronavirus, so that's probably that could be a plus, right?
And I had just because they tell you in wrestling everything is about timing, man. Everything is about timing, and for some reason in wrestling, I I have been so lucky with timing, because when I first started training to be a wrestler, I remember telling myself, okay, well, I told myself, okay, well, within 6 months, within half the year, I'm going to be somebody's champion. 5.5 months later, I'm the Imagine Wrestling champion. And I remember when I became the Imagine Wrestling champion, I told myself, from 1 year from November when I became the champion, I'm going to be signed to NXT. And it just so happened that September, a month before or 2 months before that, I get my big WWE tryout. So once again, it goes back to being a pretty good fortune teller, but it's all timing. It is all timing. And I had talked to somebody that knew somebody that went to that March trial that they just had, and because they're taping Raw and SmackDown at the Performance Center, that tryout that I actually only went like in a half. So I'm actually so glad that my trial got moved back. So
that's a plus as well. On the second note of that whole thing getting pushed back to September, don't you think at some point, they know you have the look, they know you have the ability, but you're pushing. This is just them saying, let's see if patience is really a virtue with this man.
Right. Yeah. That's because I had talked to Cato about this, and he was telling me that sometimes the WWE, they like to I don't want to say purposely mess with people, but sometimes they like to test people to kind of see where their head's at, to kind of see if they really love wrestling, and they'll do it kind of where they maybe bump tryouts up, where they tell you that they're going to do this, do that, but it ends up being a little bit longer because they just kind of want to see, do you really want this? And I remember Kato telling me, he said, Spencer, just stay the course. And I'm actually kind of glad that it got moved back, because if you look at the NXT roster right now, it's pretty darn stacked. They got some damn good wrestlers.
Yeah, they do.
Storylines are eventually going to play out, and that's why I think they're probably going to have some jobs becoming available by the end of the year, because they always seem to hire a lot of people towards the end of the year. So I'm confident that I'm going to get myself there down the road. So.
Nice. Let's take a little break from wrestling. We'll come back to IWC in a minute. Let's find out some more about Spencer now. Like, what kind of nerd are you? I know you said you're in the gym all the time, but you have to take a break once in a while. Do you like comic books? Are you a video game guy? Do you like to go hunting? Like, what is your nerd moment in life?
So the biggest joke that I like to say to about the whole video games is that I quit playing video games when I lost my virginity. That's the funny joke that I like to say.
Nice.
But no. I like to play. I'm not really a big video game guy. Like I said, I played Call of Duty when I was a kid and all that, but just now I might jump on and play some WWE 2K20 here or there.
That's a horrible game. That's a horrible game. You should stop playing it.
Oh, my God. Exactly. It glitches left and right. And you would think that WWE, of all people, WWE 2K20 would be the best damn video game that they have, but it's not. So, you know what I've been playing recently?
Baseball. Please tell me baseball.
No. Nope. I've been playing SmackDown versus Raw from 2009.
Oh, wow. Did you play Here Comes the Pain, or, of course, the PlayStation 2 one?
Yes. Yep. I remember that one, too.
Nice.
Yeah, so I pretty much, there's not really, and I know some people say, man, Spencer, you don't really enjoy anything else other than wrestling, and that's exactly right. I don't, because wrestling is really the only thing in my life that I enjoy besides hanging out with family. But I tell people, you got to realize, I am so invested in chasing my dream that I don't let any other distractions get in my way, and that's exactly why I'm always focused on wrestling.
You sound.
I truly believe it's going to pay off. It would be different if I wasn't a good wrestler. It would be different if I told you, if I didn't work out, or I didn't really have a good physique. It would be different if I knew that I was never going to make it to the WWE. I would obviously live life and do a couple different stuff like that. But You know, I know that I'm going to make it because I'm confident. So that's why I am so focused and so driven on that goal. You know, because most kids in my life, most kids my age, they like to go down to South Side or they like to go party and chase girls and all that stuff. But that ain't me, man. Every weekend, I'm either at a wrestling show or if I'm not booked, I'm back at the IWC training facility, working out, getting my cardio in, working on my punches, stuff like that. Because, you know, girls, alcohol, partying, all that stuff, that's gonna be around for the rest of your life. But you know what? What's not gonna be around for the rest of your life? Your dream.
That's.
I don't want to be that guy that said, "Damn, you know, I wish I would have chased my dream." I don't want to have to look back and say, "I wish I would have." I want to look back and say, "Man, I'm so damn proud that I took a chance on myself."
What are some of your guilty pleasures? Because I only see you eating straight meat. Like, you're probably out in the woods killing a deer and just eating the guts out because you're so ripped. Do you ever take a break and have a bowl of ice cream? Because what's your fat percentage?
Actually, I do. So my actually what I just call my cheat meal. I love donuts, so I'll usually eat about half dozen donuts maybe once or twice a month, and I'll usually have it like right after a show that we have to get those sugars in. But other than that, that's pretty much about it because I look at my body as my asset. You know, there's a lot of WB, you know, to be in the, you know, WB, they have some guys that have some great bodies. And they obviously have some guys that don't have any physiques at all. But I want to make sure that I'm one of those guys that say, yo, you know what? That guy, he looks like a damn good wrestler. We need to sign him now. So that's kind of, I always try to, you know, stand out. You know, even in IWC or wherever I go, I want to be that guy that people, I want to have the best body or I want to be the best wrestler, stuff like that. It's just that mindset of always never being complacent.
We'll get right back into wrestling, but this is a sidetrack question. What is your donut of choice? Do you are you Krispy Kreme? Are you Dunkin'? Where do you have?
Oh my God, that Krispy Kreme, man! I love the Krispy Kreme with the chocolate glaze on top.
Nice. So you're
actually, and I'll down that with I love to go to the grocery store and get that. And this is where my I like to call my muscle head mentality comes in. I like to go to the Giant Eagle and get one of them big things of those Fairlife milk that's got the extra protein in it.
Of course you do.
I always down me one of those of all those donuts. So that's my cheat meal right there.
That's your fat kid moment, right?
Absolutely, right there. That's it. Yep. And I always, like I said, I tell myself every time I eat it, all right, Spencer, you know, next time you can have this is probably 2 or 3 weeks later, you know, because every day I'm always afraid I'm going to lose my abs and that I'm going to not look nice and shredded like Kurt Angle. You know, I'm always trying to be the. I look at it this way: if there's a father that brings his son to an Imagine Wrestling show or an IWC show, I want to make sure that kid or that son knows that Spencer Slade brought his best package to that show. Spencer Slade brought his best performance to that show. Because I don't ever want somebody to leave an Imagine Wrestling show saying, man, you know what? That Spencer Slade guy, he really didn't look as ripped as he thought he was. Man, that Spencer Slade guy, he really didn't give that much effort in that match. I never, ever want to ever do that. So that's why I'm so focused on diet and training. Because the last thing you want to do is let down the fans that believe in you.
Yeah. You brought up IWC, and that's perfect. We'll transition over to that now. You remind me, going through training and everything, of another IWC guy who was just as driven, just as big, just as crazy, just as powerful, and now he's on AEW. His name's Wardlow. That's where you are. Wardlow at IWC gave no shits about anybody in ring, but that's all he did was wrestle.
Yeah, Wardlow. Like I said, you know, I owe a lot to Wardlow because he really took me under his wing. I think when I first started training, he saw me and said, you know what, this is the guy that, you know, I need this is the guy that really wants it. And you know, I'm glad that Wardlow took me under his wing because he definitely has given me a lot of advice. You know, I usually send him a message on Instagram, maybe, you know, 2 or 3 times a month because I know he's busy, but he's always giving me advice. And I remember when I first started training to be a wrestler, I'm not gonna say anything negative about the rest of the IWC locker room or any of that. But to me, the person that I watched out of all of them was Wardlow, because to me, Wardlow was the example. Wardlow was the guy. Okay, what's Wardlow doing right now? There's a reason why Wardlow is where he's at. There's a reason why he's at AEW. It's because he's big, he's strong, he's jacked, he's tan, he can wrestle, stuff like that. And I told myself, if I want to be where I want to be, I got to be like Wardlow. So that's why people say, oh, you're like a mini Wardlow. I like when people say that, but I don't like when people say that because I'm Spencer Slade. I might not be a nationally recognized name, but I'm working my tail off right now to build a name. I don't want to be compared to anybody else because I build my own name. So that's kind of how I look at it. But always thanks to good brother Wardlow. He said that's a good dude, and I'm happy that he's at AEW. But I just wish they would let him wrestle more. Jeez.
I agree. I'm waiting for the day, as we're going to talk about how much wrestling you actually watch when you do get time. We'll start with AEW. I'm waiting for the day that Wardlow just beats the piss out of MJF, aren't you?
Yeah, that would actually be that would be probably one of the biggest face turns ever if you think about it.
Yeah,
because that's why. And talking about MJF, this is where I'm kind of going to get into my opinion of like my wrestling style, what I think of wrestling. I think MJF's great. He's the kind of heel that you want. He's that old school heel that people believe, and that's one thing that this world lacks is believability in wrestling, and that's one thing that I try to bring to the table every time that I wrestle. And that's why with my style of wrestling, I can tell people, I'm really like a technical, like a Kurt Angle guy. I love that mat base, that tough style wrestling. I love always trying to lock somebody for an ankle lock or hitting the Olympic slam. Like to me, that's when I think of wrestling, I think of Kurt Angle versus Chris Benoit.
Yes.
Those matches. That's what I think of wrestling. And obviously everybody has their different taste of wrestling. I'm not a fan of the quick, flippy, high-paced, high-spot kind of stuff like that.
The Young Bucks?
I'm not a fan of it. It's not that I can't do any of that stuff. It's just that, to me, I've always looked at wrestling as trying to make it believable. And it's hard to make wrestling believable when it looks so stunt or it looks so choreographed or it looks so cooperative.
We say that week in and week out, and this isn't you saying it, it's naming names. They're great performers. The Young Bucks, Ricochet, people like that. They're amazing athletes. It's just not my cup of tea to see spot, rest. Yeah, so.
Exactly. And that's and to me, it's those guys are phenomenal, but it's not believable. It's entertaining. That's two different things.
Yep.
Being believable is convincing somebody that you could really kick their ass, versus being entertaining is convince somebody that you can do all these moves and make it look cool. It's two different things, and that's kind of why I like AEW, but I'm not a huge fan of their. I think the storylines are great, but they try to have WrestleMania matches every single week.
They do.
They got to have 25, 30-minute matches every week. It's like you don't have to have that.
My favorite wrestling right now, and probably the other guys will say the same thing, do you watch NWA? NWA is my favorite out there of the big three. Hands down.
Yep. That's because it reminds you of old school wrestling. It reminds you of NWA back in the day when you were a kid, I'm sure.
So you're dating me.
Yeah, the matches will maybe only be 5-10 minutes, but you know what? They're always telling a story. They're always cutting a promo before and after. And in my opinion, NXT is obviously my goal to get to, because that's just my goal. But I would love to get the opportunity to go to NWA, because I think that's the best place that a young wrestler can learn. Because how you learn is by is by being able to wrestle on TV for 5 or 10 minutes, but most importantly, being able to sell yourself on in a promo on live TV or on NWA. That's why I love NWA.
Another one that we're linked with, Spencer, is OVW has now got a national television broadcast as well, ran by Mr. Al Snow on TV all the time. So we'll leave this there. Maybe offhand, we need to pass some numbers around because Louisville, Kentucky is a pretty damn big hotspot for wrestling. I'll leave it at that.
Oh my God, yeah, that's definitely now that I had that WB trial coming up in September, I'm kind of at this point. I'm at the point now where I'm looking to have quality matches over quantity, if that makes sense.
Yes.
That's exactly why I'm so looking forward to this Big Bill Collier match, because to me that's a high quality match. I need that. That way I can send that match to WWE. But in the meantime, I would love to try to figure out how I could get a hold of OVW to maybe get on their shows. I think sometime after WrestleMania, like I said, once this whole coronavirus thing stops, because you don't know when wrestling shows are going to resume, but I'd love to get myself to like an Evolve seminar and tryout to definitely get on Evolve, because I think Evolve, if people don't know, is really, really picking up. I think they're like the new feeder system for NXT.
They are. Yep.
So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
So let's talk about some of your storylines. You're in a big storyline right now in IWC. You have you and Palace. Palace is kind of taking you under the wing as a, air quotes, young buck in the business. And then you have the old guys, Team Big League, just pissing on your parade all the time.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, them team Big League guys, man, I can't stand those. It's just, I think right now in IWC, I think in my opinion, I'm not gonna, like I said, I obviously have my own opinions on the show, but I think that's the hottest storyline going right now, because you got yourself 6 high quality wrestlers that both can put on awesome singles matches, but we're all having this storyline to where Team Big League, we know that we can whip Team Big League's ass, but Team Big League always has to find a cheap way to. They always end up getting that extra step ahead of us because they do something cheap. And I told Palace and myself before the show, I said, man, we gotta make sure Team Big League doesn't get a hold of us again. And lo and behold, what did they do? They kick us in the nuts, and next thing you know, we're down. So I think for the fans, man, we're not even, I can tell you right now without spoiling anything, we're not even at the apex of the feud right now. We're just getting there. So I hope the fans know that they're in for something big with this feud. I'm telling you, something big is going to happen. So that's all I'm going to leave it at.
Team Big League, you have you, Collier, and Palace on one side. You have McChesney. You have the Man-Down, which I want to ask you something about. And then you have Nystrom, but they have somebody else lingering, and I'm not going to pull punches with you, Spencer, that they have probably the best thing going in IWC right now in the dime piece. I love you guys, but when you got something like that on the outside of the ring, the dime piece, and being able to interfere with their looks and, her wrestling ability, you guys are outnumbered.
Absolutely, yeah. That's like I said, if I wasn't Spencer Slade and I was a fan, I would actually probably be cheering them at the Man-Dime and the dime piece, just because as a wrestling fan, that's like to me, he's like the cool hot heel. You got a hot chick with a guy that you don't like, but Man-Dime, he dresses he's got really, really good gear. If you look closely, he doesn't dress like a guy that came off the side of the street. He very, very, very well dressed. He's a very, very, very good character. But as much as the fans like Man-Dime, they got to realize that Spencer Slade made the Man-Dime cap out at Volume 8 for the Imagine Wrestling Championship. So that's what I remember Man-Dime as.
The Man-Dime one time. And I don't want to pull punches. I hope you don't come through the computer and hit me, or next time you see me, you shun me or anything.
No, not at all, man. You, like I said, with me, you can say whatever you want, man. I don't care. It doesn't bother me.
He called you, and I'm embarrassed to say it myself. He called you Helen Keller. Like that's cuts deep.
Yeah, that really rattled me a little bit. I was like, man, okay, because I didn't think, there's sometimes that you don't really think that people are really going to say what you think they're going to say, but they really do. But to me, when he said Helen Keller, I was actually really, really happy. And I know it sounds terrible, but I was really, really happy because like I said, now he got me excited. Now he got me really, 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 really ready to whip his ass. So that's kind of how I look at it, Man down, like I said, he can say whatever he wants through the internet, but he always knows that if he's in the ring with me one-on-one, he already knows what the result's going to be. So that's why I leave it at that, because I'm the baby face. I'm the good guy. The good guy is the one that's not gonna talk smack and say stuff like that. I always try to represent Spencer Slade, the Spencer Slade brand, and that's always doing the right thing. So I always let the bad guys run their mouth and talk. I'm just here to pretty much just do my thing and shut them up,
Yeah, that's a great way to do it. Spencer, a couple more questions because I know you're biting at the bit to get to the gym. I'm keeping you long, but let's do two more questions. Well, one question and then a shout-out, more or less, because we'll have you back on. There's so much more to tell with you down the line, continuing to follow your career. Of course, you're going to come on once you're on NXT, so on and so forth, but we can't give everything away tonight, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I pretty much I'm trying to think if there's anything else really that we didn't cover. I just want to make sure that we got the story, because I'm sure there could be somebody listening to this that could really, really help them out. But no, it was just, people just got to realize that, when they see Spencer Slade wrestle, they might liken me to Kurt Angle, which is fine because that's my all-time favorite wrestler. But they need to know that you're staring at a guy who dedicates his life to this, a guy that this is the only thing he wants to do with his life. It's a guy that takes pride in wrestling, and it's most importantly a guy that was saved by wrestling. And I'm stepping into that ring to basically do and make young kids feel the same way that I felt when I was 12 years old watching wrestling. So that's what I'm all about.
And that's great. It brings you back to old times. That's what's in my head. But last question. If you had, I know the answer to this. I hope I know the answer to this. If you had a dream match against anybody, where would it be? Who would it be against? And would there be a special stipulation in the match?
Oh man, that's a tough one here, man. But obviously, let me think here real quick. Like I said, I'm the kind of guy that I'm all about pushing myself to the absolute limit. So my dream match would be myself versus Kurt Angle in a 60-minute Iron Man match for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania, kind of like Bret Hart for Shawn Michaels. That would be my dream match.
I didn't get a stipulate. I thought maybe submission match. That's where I was going to go. But you trumped me. You trumped me.
I had just thought about the submission match in my head, because that's kind of what I like to do. I like to do submission matches, but you know what? It would probably end up being Spencer Slade versus Kurt Angle in a submission match. To me, that would be exactly what I was watching when I was a kid. Angle versus Benoit, and I would be in heaven. That's my dream match right there. And actually, it's funny is I just posted a picture on my Instagram here about three days ago with me in the middle of the ring with the title bout, and you'll never guess who liked it.
Kurt Angle.
Kurt Angle, yep. Once I saw the notification that said "Real Kurt Angle likes your photo," I was being a mark for the rest of the night.
That's us, showing everybody, look who liked my picture, look who liked my picture. I would do the same thing.
Yeah.
So-
yeah. It's funny is because I have literally watched, because I mean, like I said, I wrestled the exact style of Kurt Angle. I do the same moves he does because not that he does it, but just because to me it just feels so natural. It's just what I would do in a match. But I have literally watched every single Kurt Angle match there is. I can memorize the entire match in my head. Kurt versus Shawn Michaels at Mania 21. Kurt versus Eddie at Mania 20. Kurt versus Brock at Mania 19. I can memorize every single move they did, and that's kind of what I do when I'm out there wrestling a match for my title. I kind of memorize certain spots that they did in the match to use in my match, so it looks good.
Nice.
Because I think that's another way as a young wrestler to better yourself is to constantly watch film, because you can never ever stop learning.
In anything, not just wrestling, in life.
In life, yes, exactly, in life.
All right, Spencer, give everybody your social media so you can get more people following you.
Absolutely. So I'll start with Facebook, because I know that I'm sure there's people out there that do Facebook. You can get me at Facebook at Spencer Chisholm, which is my real last name, CHISHOLM. You can check out me on Twitter at Slade Wrestler. You can check me out on Instagram at Slade Wrestling, and that's where you can keep up to date. I usually try to post something at least 3-4 times a week to keep it going. But if you want to know what I'm up to, go ahead and check out those social media accounts, and you'll know exactly what I'm up to.
All right, Spencer, head to the gym. I kept you way too long. Head to the gym, and we'll see you soon, buddy.
Absolutely, yeah. Like I said, I appreciate you guys so much for bringing me on the show. I think it was a great show. I think we're going to help people out there in the future. And please let me know the next wrestling show that you guys are going to be at after this whole coronavirus thing goes away, so we can chat and link up.
If that interview didn't get you motivated, I don't know what is going to get you motivated. Man, this guy, Spencer Slade, is just a genuine, amazing human being. After I stopped the recording, we talked again for, I don't know, half an hour or so, and we just chatted, and he's wonderful. He really is. Again, it's somebody that I want to say I want to become friends with. I'll support him in the ring and everything, but I want to be friends with Spencer Slade because of what he talked about, his story about having your back. It just is a wonderful thing knowing that he's all in. This is what he's going to do, and it's also for the fans. He's doing it for him to prove, the bullies, the this, the that, the same thing that he said during this interview, but he's also doing it for us. He really is. And I'll say us because, I'm named Mark, and that fits perfectly. You guys hear that all the time. It really does fit perfectly with me because I love the weekly shows. I do, but I love sitting down and talking with these guys, getting to know them, being able to walk up to a wrestling show and just giving them five and say, yo, Spencer, what's up? And just chat like normal human beings. It doesn't need to be about wrestling. It doesn't need to be about this. It could be about the coronavirus and how, we're possibly scared, or how, we're going to all turn into Ghostbusters and beat this damn thing. How about him announcing he will be at WWE Performance Center in September? Guys, let's all get on the bandwagon and cheer on Spencer Slade. It's amazing. It's amazing what he has done in about a year. The Imagine World Wrestler, the Imagine Heavyweight Champion. I'm stuttered because I just think, man, he has motivated me with some of the words that he said, and he's a kind-hearted man, and that's awesome. It really is. Again, guys, it's sad to hear that Imagine had to kind of postpone their show this Saturday, but the show will go on. There'll be another show once everything shakes out. We want to see Slade against Collier. Again, I want to see Ray Lynn against Queen Aminata. and David Lawless is going to get his ass kicked by the franchise Shane Douglas. I hope this card is just picked up and put on another date, because anniversary card and everything, this was going to be awesome. So Kato, if you can make that work, we're pulling for you, buddy. We really are. Guys, thanks again. Great interview with Spencer. Thanks for coming on the show. And if you guys want to send more people our way, send us an email. Tell us, hey, reach out to this person. Or if you're that person and you want to be on the show, it's cancrushers69@gmail.com. You can also get us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. It's at cancrushers69. You'll find us there. Head over to our website. It's always in our link in our bios and everything. And we ask you to go to ratethispodcast.com/cancrushers. Tell us how much you hate us. Tell us what we can improve on, how much you love us. Anything you want to say is on there, and it comes back to us, and we'll work on some things. But we're transparent. We really are. We don't have the biggest and the best, but you know what? We love what we do, and we want to give it to you guys the same way. One-on-ones, two-on-one, whatever. We want to bring you the best wrestling interviews, chats that we can here on Can Crushers. So remember, just because you're trash doesn't mean you can't do great things. It's called a garbage can, not a garbage cannot. See you this weekend.